Let's now look at instance variable and instance methods. So before we go into that, what is instance? So instance is just another name of objects, the specific objects that we create based on the class description. They are also known as instances. So what is an instance variable? Instance variables are those data fields that belong to specific instances or whose value actually differs from one object to another. For example, the radius field of the circle class. Each circle object will have his own radius value. So the radius value differs from one object class of circle to another object circle. So radius is an instance variable. Similarly, instance methods are invoked by an instance of the class. So if we want to calculate the area of the circle, every circle will have its own separate area based on its own individual radius. So getArea method is dependent on each individual circle object, and thus it's known as an instance methods. As opposed to this instance variable and instance methods, we have static variables, static constants, and static methods. So static variables are shared by all the instances of the class. That means these are the data fields of a class that is not any specific object dependent. Rather, they are common to all objects that are created from the class. We will see an example shortly. The static methods are not tied to a specific object, and static constants are final variables like constants which are shared by all the instances of the class. So in general, the behavior and the attributes that are not dependent on particular object instances, rather they are shared by any objects of that class, they are known as static parameters. So to declare static variables or constants or methods, we need to use the static modifier. For instance variables or instance method, we don't need any specific keywords, but for static ones, we need to put the static keyword. So let's look at an example. What does it mean? From this circle description, the circle class description, where we have this radius as a specific data field for objects, and then we have this number of objects, another data field of integer type. We have a method get number of objects, which does not take any input and it has a integer return type. We have this getArea method which returns a double type value. So we see when we create two objects from this circle class, one named circle1, another named circle2, we are creating two separate circle objects, meaning for this circle1 in the memory, we will have a separate location to have this radius 1, to store this radius 1. For circle 2, to have this separate radius 5, we need to have separate memory location. Since for each particular object, circle 1 and circle 2, we need separate memory location for separate attributes, those attributes are known as instance variables. But this number of objects, so this is what number of objects mean. Whenever we create a circle object from this class, this number of object field will be increased. Since we have created two circles here, the number of objects value is 2. And this value, this is a common value. Even if we have 500 circles created from this circle class, the number of objects value will be 500, but that 500 is same for all those circles. objects. So we don't need separate memory locations to have this shared attribute. This type of shared attributes and shared behaviors are known as static variables or static methods. So these type of static variables are shared by all the instances of the class.